Est-ce que vous désirez que je lise les consignes en français ou en anglais?
En anglais, s'il vous plaît.
Each team has 20 minutes to present its case to the judges. I will show a board for the 10, 5, last 2 minutes, and last 30 seconds of the presentation. During the last 10 seconds of the speech, I will indicate by the means of my two hands the number of remaining seconds. A team not having ended its presentation after 20 minutes will be stopped to move on to the period of questions. A period of questions of a maximal duration of 5 minutes is assigned to the jury at the end of the presentation. I would like to remind to each judge that it's mandatory to ask at least one question during this period. So I will now invite the judges to introduce themselves.
Bonjour, mon nom est Danielle Félicien. Je travaille pour Desjardins Capital au niveau de la stratégie d'allocation d'actifs et le suivi des portefeuilles de placement.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Yang. I work for Novartis as Business Planning and Analytics Manager, and previously I was Equity Research Analyst for Global Hedge Fund.
I'm Alex Ennis. I work at Van Berkel and Associates, where I focus on U.S. small cap.
When you're ready.
Good morning, Mr. Brown. Today, you're on a crossroad. While you are subsidized by the Canadian government on one side, you are facing tariffs from the US government. And this is why you have the interesting business opportunity to create a joint venture with Airbnb, who is the leading market in the industry. Today, the question is this a strategic fit for your company? I'm here today, Mr. Bell, with my colleagues Julien Grégo and Philippe Carmont, myself, Lucas Holgen, and we are P&L Consulting.
We've come today and developed a mandate of whether or not you should accept this offer for a joint venture. We've made it based off 3 main points, and this is the value of the project in and of itself, the impact on your company as a whole, and also the market timing of this transaction. We came to the conclusion that not only should you accept the offer in a sense, you should actually go back and with a counter offer of $1.1 billion investment from Airbnb. This is because we value this joint venture at a $4 billion valuation. And a sense of giving 50% of that away is a little high on your side. Also, second point, based on reputation and longevity of your company. We see that your company has had some struggles in the past with its funding. However, it can actually create a lot of profitability and support moving forward, especially for the financial stability of this company that you would be having a joint venture with. And also the timing, we believe that the timing is now. You must go in with this presentation and with the joint venture because otherwise you could lose the market position, and also the development of the planes of themselves has created this market leadership that you guys don't want to lose. So an industry overview. These are a couple things that we want to look at. So in essence, of plane utilization. What we've been seeing in the industry, especially in the airlines industry right now, is that load factors all-time high, plane utilization all-time high, capacities almost at all-time lows. This means that if the industry is to grow from the sense of airlines, they can no longer fully utilize their planes anymore because they're maxing that capacity out. So in essence, there's a lot of forecasts moving forward that will actually create a demand for airplanes themselves and no longer being able to fill up the planes because they've already reached that maximum capacity. Buyer power has been an issue, seeing as there's huge consolidation in the airline industry. Just for example, 85% of the airline industry in the United States is run by 6 airlines. So you can imagine how this can become an issue and how economies of scale, especially for the supplier, is especially key. The market growth. So there have been forecasts over the next 5 years that it's going to be at about 20.5% throughout that time. And this presents opportunities, especially in the developing markets, because this is where now planes, air travel is becoming more affordable. These are places where demand for passengers will increase substantially, and somewhere where your company would really like to tap in. Innovation, your company is known to be one of the most innovative, one of the most forward-looking companies, and is very lucky to have created this plane, developed this plane that in essence has not only a very good fuel economy, but also is very highly technologically advanced relative to a lot of the other planes. 5, we have the competition. So your main competition is EMB. The other ones aren't exactly direct competitors. However, EMB, what we found is that they have developed a plane similar to yours, and they are almost at completion of that development. This is why we brought up in the timing that the timing it needs to be now, and you really need to focus on this joint venture and really try and roll that out. And finally, just the government involvement. So as my colleague pointed out, Canada is known to be subsidizing a lot of the planes that you guys are building, and also on the other side you have the US who's trying to slap a 300% tariff. So this does create a lot of issues in, I guess you could call it government meddling, and something that you do need to take into consideration moving forward. So this is the deal, just the breakdown. Airbnb proposed that they get 50.01%, obviously leaving you with 49.99%. This would allow synergies of $1 million per plane, considering you're planning about 2,000 planes over the next 20 years. This would be $2 billion before the present value calculation. But they have also promised to do future investments, allow you to use their sales network, and also use their US-based factory. These are all things that would not only let you surpass the 300% tariff that the US government is trying to put on, but also by using their sales network, you can really move forward your sales through these channels, and because this is an issue that you guys have had in the past. And future investments kind of gives you financial stability. Looking over your financial statements, there are some issues regarding funding and how much debt you guys have relative to the equity portions. So this would be a very good support system for your company to have. The key success factors of the industry. Just briefly, the management of external contracts, a skilled workforce, obviously with the technological advancements. Attracting foreign buyers, this is from the Canadian perspective because the Canadian marketplace is quite small. New products, so that's innovation, something that your company does extremely well. Economies of scale, which is something that this joint venture would bring together. And also the ability to find sales contracts. I'll be going more in depth in how it relates to the individual companies as a whole later on. So the company profile, we broke down global transport and Airbnb. These are things that are affecting the company right now. For your company, we found, as I've mentioned multiple times, that you are a leading innovator. You have stressed that this is something that you really want to do and something that you're moving forward towards. You're facing those 300% tariffs, which does create a lot of issues, especially with the sales. And you have cost structure issues. Whereas Airbnb, they are a market leader, number 2 actually in the world of developing airplanes. They're extremely financially stable, and they have a very, very wide sales network. However, together with this joint venture, we would be essentially canceling out the tariffs and the cost structure, really getting the best of both worlds. So on the surface, it would look as if general transport really needs Airbnb, but Airbnb could also use the innovation of global transport, something that not is fully seen on the surface. And this is something that we'll go more into in the implementation. So now the key success factors, again, going over, by the joint venture, we will actually be getting 5 of the 6 key success factors. The final one, the management of external contracts, is something that we've actually put into our implementation, something that is not necessarily that will come from the joint venture, but that is something that we can work on and something that we have stated in that front.
So now that we know that on a strategic point, this joint venture makes sense for your business, Mr. Bell, we now would look at the financial sense of this business. So how we painted this picture is what we created 3 cases. So the bear case, which implies a tariff that would be going forward, and then a base case which has a probabilistic approach to that tariff, and then the joint venture which allows you to clear by that tariff. So as you can see here on the table, with the joint venture, you have the possibility to double your base value of currently $2 billion. So here are the few things that we took into consideration into building each of these different cases. So we took into consideration the breakdown between the GT1000 plane, which is the smaller of your 2 100 to 160 person planes, and the G2000s. So as been told, 3/4 of the planes would be the planes sold would be GT 1000s. And also, we do believe that earlier on, there will be a lot more planes sold as you'll be entering a new market, therefore bypassing competition from EMB, which will come later on. And then furthermore, in the later stage, so the last 5 years, we do see a decline, as we do believe there would be other innovation within the industry, therefore changing the sales profile of your planes. And then also, so what we implied here is a 30% chance of tariff. We've been told by analysts that there is a low to medium probability of this tariff to be actually implied onto your sales towards the US. And then what portion of the US would actually affect your total sales? Well, basically we took the 2,000 current planes that are bought by US over the 6,900 planes bought around the globe, and then we applied that going forward, leaving us with a 29% of your sales going towards the US. And then in our base case, which is the one without the joint venture, we do not believe that there will be any synergies, as you will not be integrating your cost structure with Airbnb's cost structure. And then lastly, a little breakdown of the cost and revenues per plane. We do notice here an assumption of $80 million in revenues for the GT 1000, and then 100 million GT 1000 revenue. We do know that the analysts currently said that you're selling under the price, so roughly $20 million. But we do believe that in the long run, if we want to measure the value of your company today, we have to take the assumption of $80 million, because if we do take into consideration the $20 million, your business is actually worth $0, which we don't believe is sustainable and true. So as you can see here, gross profits would scale down from around $3.5 billion in the first 5 years towards $2 billion in the later 5 years, passing through $2.8 billion in the mid-years. And now looking at the JV profit schedule, here relatively same assumption incorporating the breakdowns of the GT 1000 and the GT 2000, but something I want to draw your attention to is two things. First of all, we do believe that there's a possibility to increase the amount of planes sold due to the fact that you'll benefit from the sales network of Airbnb, as my colleague Julian mentioned before. So therefore, we would bump up the numbers of planes sold to 2,200 planes. Also, we do see a possibility of synergy of $1 million. We haven't sensitized for the full on that measure, but we do believe that $1 million per plane is something very realistic, according to the fact that it's only roughly 3 or 5% of your total cost. So therefore, we do believe that this is very possible. And also the elimination of the tariff. As you'll be moving your production towards to the US and having your US facilities, you won't be facing the threat from Bing that can say to their government that we are doing something under the cost. Therefore, we do see a 0% chance of tariff. So now our bear profit schedule case. So this is when we do believe that it is mandatory for you to actually go forward with this motion, as you do pen the risk to completely destroy value for your shareholder. And as the CEO of GT, you really, really want to leave a staple mark of your career going forward. So as you can see here, if the tariff is imposed, we actually have value destruction from day one to year 36, so to year 20, as you can see on the bottom left chart. So how did we came to value these businesses? Well, we had to make a few assumptions. The first assumption was really what would be our discount rate for these cash flows. So for our cash flows, we do noted that your last year's cost of debt was 5%, as taken into the interest expense divided by your long-term debt. And then so we assume a 35% tax rate, giving us a 3.25% after-tax cost of debt. And then for the risk-free rate, we do notice that the current long-term government bond yields is at 2.25%, with a beta of 1.52, with a market risk premium of 6%. It was varying in the airline industry, varying from 5 to 7%. Therefore, we went for the midpoint of 6%, which gives us a cost of equity of 11.37%, which is relatively in line with manufacturers within the airline businesses. And also we do look at a debt to value, so we took the total debt compared to your enterprise value, which gives us 62.70%. This led us to a 6.28% cost of capital. However, we do believe that as this is a single project, we do believe that there's additional risk. Therefore, we've incorporated a 300 basis point premium onto that to give us to a weighted average cost of capital of 9.28%. So here we do see how did we value these different businesses. So we took the gross profit and we went to the EBIT. So what we did is we took the 3 years average of your gross profit over your earnings before interest and tax divided by your gross profit, which gives us an average of 20% of the gross margin. And then we applied a 35% tax rate on that to give us our net profit, operating profit after tax. And then we do notice that this project has been completed, therefore the CapEx has been done for this project, therefore there's no CapEx going forward for that, as this has already been incurred in the past. And then for net working capital, we do believe it will be constant throughout the period, therefore no additional changes. So here you can see the three valuation of each projects. So on our bear case, we do have a negative value, so therefore a value of 0, which would be extremely value destructive for your shareholders. And then for, as you can see here, your current value of $2 billion in line with your estimates, and then a JV value of $4 billion. Therefore, we do encourage you to go forward with the joint venture, and Lucas will tell you about the implementation.
So, thank you. So going forward as an ownership structure, previously to the joint venture, we know that 49.5% was to the Canadian government. Going forward with the joint venture, this will change to a 50.01% to the Airbnb, leaving us with 49.9% of the ownership. Next, so as we mentioned, we need to go through with this joint venture if we want this business to be lucrative. And we want this to be as fast as possible since EMB has the ability to eat our market share. So we want this joint venture to happen. So going forwards, the first week we want to counter the offer. As mentioned, we want Airbnb to purchase back Canadian shares for 1.1 billion shares. So in the second week, we will be conducting management meeting and due diligence, which will take approximately 3 weeks. After that, we will have the approval, of course, from the Trade Commission. And once we have that, we will go forward with Airbnb purchasing back the shares from the Canadian government. Going forward with the 6th week, we will want to handle any joint venture integration. So again, the deal structure, Airbnb will buy 49.5% for 1.1 billion from the Canadian government. We will be transferring 0.51% of our share to Airbnb, which will lead us to a decrease of 51% share as opposed to the pre-venture. So in the implementation, in order to bypass the tariff, we are doing this joint venture will enable us to start manufacturing in the US and therefore bypass this tariffs. Next, we want to negotiate contract with suppliers. This is where the cost synergies come from, not only from contract with suppliers, but also from economies of scale. Third, we want to incorporate long-term contract with customers. As my colleague mentioned, we will be selling 2,000 planes in the next 20 years. But on top of that, with the leverage of Airbnb's leading position, we believe we can have an extra 10% sales, which will lead to 2,200 planes sold in the next 20 years. So what are some of the risk and mitigation? Of course, as we said and emphasized, is the tariff barrier. With this tariff, your company is worth 0. However, with this joint venture, we see that it doubles to $4 billion. What about EMB's threat? As Julian explained, EMB is also our real competitor, as they are the only one who are technology advanced in the planes. So we want to have an early entrance in the market in order to have the first mover advantage in the technology advanced planes. Third is the US protectionism. As we understand, Donald Trump is very on protection and on his jobs, and therefore having the manufacturing in the US will actually bring US to the jobs, and therefore we believe that this is in line with the US protectionism. So all in all, time is of the essence. We really want to emphasize this. We want this joint venture to happen as fast as possible in order to be able to bypass the tariff, but also come ahead ahead of EMB. This is why, Mr. Bell, we recommend that you counter an offer to Airbnb with 1.1 billion for 50.1% of the shares. On this note, thank you very much, and we leave the floor for open questions.
I think you understood the case in the sense that you looked at what GT was worth, what GT1 project would be worth without the JV. I guess my first question is us entering a negotiation, how do I justify the demand for incremental investment of 1.1 billion, given that you think that without the JV, the GT1 project is worthless, right? So the assumption there is that Airbnb creates a lot of that 4 billion in value. How do I go to someone and ask for them to pay for something that they will ultimately create when what I currently have, by your own admission, is worthless?
So so how did we measure the value? Our base case actually values this company at $2 billion. Our bear case, which is the tariff being imposed, which we don't believe should happen, but we did have to have a case for that. We do believe that we should go to them, and the reason why they would agree to pay this $1.1 billion in value is because they're acquiring something worth $2 billion as they're having 50% of this 4 billion for only 1.1 billion, therefore creating tremendous value for their own shareholders.
Okay. Do you mind just going back to that base case of 2 billion and how you arrived at that? Okay. Okay, so we know that we're selling planes at a loss today. I guess what's your assumption around price, gross profit, and just you've got some profitability today. We're deep in the red. So how do we get to this picture?
So we do know that analysts currently estimates that you're selling planes at a loss currently, but we do believe that in the long run, these planes have tremendous value for not only the airlines, but also for other airplane prop owners. Therefore, we do believe that the price on the long run would adjust back to $80 million, therefore creating profit.
Okay, and then do you want to go to, I think you have some kind of, not a DCF slide, but a valuation slide for this base case. So you talked about, the project. I agree that a lot of the investments have already happened, but have we built all the planes today?
So no, we did not have all.
So working capital is not zero?
No, the working capital is not zero, but the change in net working capital, we do believe won't be changing tremendously.
What if I haven't built the planes? Explain that to me. Right, net working capital is you creating inventory. You have to put money to create those planes.
But we do believe that the account receivables as well as the account payables would balance out the inventory creation. Therefore,
okay, but you have units increasing. Right?
Yes. So units are decreasing as time goes by.
Okay. Do you want to go back because we haven't sold planes yet? So unless we're sitting.
Yeah. So first year there would be an increase, and then you would have it.
Okay. Okay. So, but then from that perspective, then if you have decreasing units, you should be accruing some networking capital. I just don't think that no networking capital is, given the time constraint, I understand that it's hard to look at, but I wouldn't say that it's zero.
But we do believe that on a long-term basis, although it is increasing now and decreasing later, we do on a 20-year profile, it would even out pretty evenly, and maybe even favoring in our favor, therefore bolstering our value.
Right, right. But keeping in mind that year one carries much more value if you're discounting at 10%. Okay. Okay.
So let's say that Airbnb agrees to pay us 1.1 billion. How would you implement this cash?
So essentially what we were looking at was to buy out, I guess, the Canadian government because they were the ones that have 49.5% currently. And by they invested $1 billion, so the 1.1 would actually go directly to them, and this would provide them a 10% return on their investment, and would to show that we're not really kicking them out, but we really want you to move forward and I guess, trim what's weighing you down, in the sense that the Canadian government has really been affecting your company into moving into the United States. And by letting them go and bringing in Airbnb, that's really what's going to allow your company to bolster itself and bolster the reputation in the United States.
My only question is, since we're selling right now at 20 million, and according to the case here, the revenues are averaged to 80 million. How do you, with the current market and the competitors in the market, how do you expect to be able to move from 20 million to 80 million?
Well, the fact is that right now EMB is our real competitor, as there's only one doing technology advanced plane, and as we in the key success factors, a big part of that is being innovation. And so going forwards with Airbnb would allow us to manufacture these planes and go ahead of EMB and really take that market share.
Questions on?